Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Well, WhatNot is like that, guys, so stay tuned to see what I picked up next. Intro. I went back to WhatNot. I had tried staying off of there, and I have been really good, but I go too long, and all of a sudden, I'm lured back in, and I check out some of my favorite sellers, and that leads into some other new sellers sometimes, and that's what happened over the last few weeks. But in the end, I ended up with some really good books, some great key comics, some great cover buys, and some interesting Mark Jewelers inserts as well. So sit back, stay tuned, and we will get to the books. But before we do that, definitely hit that like button, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any of my episodes that I put out each and every week, Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. All right, guys, let's get into the books. All right, so when I went back on WhatNot, one of the things I do is always go back to my favorite sellers, and I know some of their schedules, so I know what days to watch. And I've got one in particular that I watch a lot, and that is TBC Comics out of Crofton, Maryland. They have had some great books, but there's a couple other local sellers as well that I have been following. And even though I didn't buy anything from one of those from this particular show, at the end of their show, they actually sent their entire audience to a new seller that I've never been to before. And that's the one we're going to start with today. In this case, it is the person I ended up getting these really cool Mark Jeweler inserts from. They weren't expensive, and that's one of the reasons I picked them up. I'm not usually apt to just start buying from a channel I've never been on before, but I thought they were interesting buys. They're not big books, but they are Mark Jewelers inserts. And I think it goes to prove that just because it's a Mark Jewelers insert does not mean it's a very valuable book. Because afterwards I looked it up, and even graded, it would be tough even with a Mark Jewelers insert. But let me show you what the books are right here. The seller was called Avenging Iron. It's all one word. And it was a pretty interesting show, but as soon as I went on the show, as soon as they switched over to his channel, they were doing one of these Captain America books, and I don't remember which one in which order it was, but let me show it to you. I'll show you the first one here. This is Captain America 373. Back in the days, I believe Ron Lim was doing the artwork when you had Diamondback, who was trying to become romantically involved with Captain America. It was a pretty fun time with the comics. They weren't nothing, I wouldn't say anything special, but they were some fun books. So for a few bucks, I ended up buying this right here. It wasn't expensive. It was right there. The auction was going on just as we went into the channel. Oh, cool, a Mark Jewelers insert. I'll put a few dollars on that and see where it goes. And for only a few bucks, I ended up picking this up. So I decided to stay on the channel rather than just having that one win to see what else was going to happen. So I just let it, just like the TV's on, I let the WhatNot channel sit there for a little bit. So I watched the channel, and he ended up having several Mark Jewelers inserts from several different books, including Captain America 342 and 370. And he didn't have any more Captain Americas, but he did have this really cool Fantastic Four 342. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, 324 with Ron Friend's artwork there on the front with Joe Sennett doing the inking. You get Kang, the really cool cover. And all of these didn't cost all that much at all, even with shipping. And afterwards, I thought it was kind of cool because I've only ever had one Mark Jewelers insert in my collection that I picked up a couple years ago at the Baltimore Comic-Con in just a random Spider-Man book that I had picked up. But I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. I'll play this game a little bit for a few dollars. And afterwards, I went and looked up and even graded. You'd have to get 9/8 on this. And I don't think any of these are actually going to meet the 9/8 grade. But to be honest with you, they're not worth even doing. Even with Mark Jewelers inserts, this was one of those that I don't think anybody cares about these just because it has Mark Jewelers inserts. It's got to be better books, I think, is my lesson learned on this. So off the bat right here, really shouldn't be buying. This is the kind of stuff I should be staying away from on WhatNot. Just picking up stuff randomly through emotion, doing it quickly. I should stay away from that. That's my lesson I'm going to give out to everybody right now. I would suggest spending some time on some of these channels, maybe picking up some small books like this to get to know a seller, but to be honest, I wasn't looking to pick up a new seller. But got some pretty cool Mark Jewelers inserts out of this, but I don't know what I'm going to do with them at this point because they're definitely not going to get graded. But still cool nonetheless. But I wasn't quite done with that because they ended up. Now, this is over the course of a few days that I went back to WhatNot. And again, I went to one of my favorite sellers, and I didn't buy anything from one of these sellers. But again, they passed us over to another seller. And I've been seeing this a lot where you will have one show supporting another. And they did it again. This is the second time now that I've seen them pass over an audience. And this one actually got to something I couldn't believe. It was something I really had been just looking at on a certain website. But let me show it to you. This was from Sleeping Giant, a new seller I've never heard of on WhatNot. And as soon as we got switched over to this channel, they had a book on there that I wanted. And I had been looking up this comic on, in fact, just a few days ago, I was looking it up on Unknown Comics. It's one of their exclusive covers. And I was about ready to drop full price on that plus shipping from them directly to get a copy of this. Let me show it to you now. It is the Fall of House of X #2. It is the I'm reading here, Ben Harvey Virgin variant. And of course, you got Rogue and you've got Gambit right there. And I love this artwork. And I continue talking about Ben Harvey as an artist I really like. In my last new comic book show, I talked about picking up, or one of my last shows, I talked about picking up the entire run of the New Century comic book. I think it was a 4-issue miniseries where he was doing the covers. How I got to meet him a couple years ago at the Baltimore Comic-Con when he had not done any work for Marvel at that point. And soon after that, he had done some work for Boom, doing a variant cover to one of the Something Skilling Your Children books. And then his popularity is just picked up from there as a cover artist. I don't think he does any interior work at all. But I regret not picking up a piece of original artwork from him at the time. In fact, that's what caught my attention as I was going around Artist Alley on the last day of Baltimore Comic-Con. And I was looking at the art and the prints and see if there was anything interesting. And his prints are what caught my eye to begin with because they were pretty nice. I mean, as nice as this. And in the end, I ended up buying a Black Widow print that I actually have on the wall right up here. You can't see it from the camera. But I did that, and I got a Harley Quinn print that he signed both of them, and I gave the Harley Quinn print to my daughter, who's a big Harley Quinn fan. But I didn't buy a piece of original artwork, and I kind of wish I did because now his popularity has just grown, and I have not had a chance to see him in person a second time. But I saw this cover as I was looking at some other books on Unknown Comics website, and man, I thought this was really good. This is really spectacular. This is the Virgin copy of this. And as I said, I was getting ready to buy that directly from Unknown Comics themselves for basically full price, minus I think I had a discount that a code that they had sent me for signing up for their newsletter. And about ready to pull the trigger, and happened to be that night that I was on one of my favorite WhatNot shows. I can't remember which one it was at this point because there's several I will watch, even though I don't buy anything all the time. I'm not buying everything all the time, guys. And when they switched over to this channel, this is the book that was right up there, and I'm going, okay, right there, that's it. And I ended up getting this for about $13 less than what the cover price. So it was even better than what the discount was going to be from Unknown Comics directly. So I'm hoping that at some point they either do a signing with Ben Harvey or I'll get to see him again, whether he shows up in Baltimore or maybe down in Charlotte for Heroes Con. Maybe one of those, but I am definitely holding on to that for that reason alone. But that brings me to, I keep talking about it, and I mentioned them earlier, one of my favorite WhatNot sellers is TBC Comics out of Crofton, Maryland. And again, locally here in Maryland, they have a really nice shop down in, as I said, in Crofton, Maryland. It's about a half-hour drive for me to get there. And I do see them set up at most of the shows here in Maryland every month when they set up. And they always have some really good books. In fact, about every other comic book show I go to, I see them. So I end up usually getting some really good things. In fact, the last thing I picked up from them at the show that they were at, I got a beautiful, beautiful Wolverine limited series #1 in a newsstand for a really good price that I think that may go into the Frank Miller, Chris Claremont, the Wolverine signing at CGC, the big 50th anniversary group that they've got together to do that book. So good shop, and every week I do watch their show. It's usually on around, I think, 5 or 5:30 on Sunday nights. Now sometimes they also have a Tuesday show as well. And I picked up a couple things over the last couple of weeks from either of their shows. I can't tell you which one in particular, but the books have been spectacular. And let me just get into them right here. And let me show you this. This is a book I've owned. This is a book I've gotten graded. It was my personal copy. It was a really nice copy. I got a 9.4 on that. I was a little disappointed, to be quite honest with you. And I've been looking for a very reasonably priced replacement that's a 9.8 candidate. It is Captain America #8, the annual. And you've got this, one of the greatest pieces of Mike Zeck artwork that you will ever see in your life. And you can argue with me on that, but I will tell you guys, I have seen this original artwork in person back in 2019 up in Philadelphia at the Franklin Institute when they were doing the big Marvel show where they were going around with a lot of the MCU props mixed in with a lot of the original artwork through the years of Marvel, and it was a wonderful display. It's one of those that if I can ever dig out the photos, the total library of photos that I got from that show, I may put together a show based on that experience. So I would just give me an excuse to show off some of the artwork. But one of the pieces of artwork that was there was this piece of artwork right here. And I'm telling you guys, original artwork is fantastic. It's big, and you see the details in the artwork that sometimes gets lost in printing. Sometimes when they reduce it, a lot of times when they reduce it, fine lines kind of disappear, but on the original artwork, you can see it. And I'm going to tell you, the fine lines that you see with the explosion and the fire coming off of the claws right there off the shield. I mean, it was absolutely stunning to see the detail work, the fine detail work on this. This is a really nice copy. And I can't wait to get this one to the shop and clean and press it and get it into CGC. It's one of those that I would love to get a 9.8 on this at some point. Obviously, we all would, right? Big shock there, guys. But this right here is a super candidate. Let me turn this a little bit. Yeah, I'm getting some glare tonight, guys. So sorry about that right there. They do at TVC put most of their books in a nice Mylite or a Mylar. So I'm getting some serious glare here tonight. But that was a great pickup. And again, I can't tell you which show over the last couple of weeks that I picked up some of these. They weren't all in the same night. Sometimes it's been one show, then the next, and then maybe the following Sunday. I don't know. But it's hard. It's hard staying off of there when you see great books and you see great books at great prices, and it's super hard. It's my biggest problem I have is just saying no, even when it's a great deal and it's a great comic. Do you really need it? And the answer is apparently I need it, and that's spending money is bad. But in some of these, I'm considering the fact that I want to get them clean and pressed and then send them in the CGC, and some of them will be for sale because I've got duplicate copies on some of these. So let's go on to one of those that's a duplicate. And this is a really nice copy. It is not quite as nice as some of the other copies of this particular book that they've had on the channel in the last couple of weeks. And I don't know where they're getting this supply, but it seems like the last few weeks on TVC's WhatNot channel, it has just exploded with Dave Stevens books. And we're not talking just run-of-the-mill books. We're talking some of his best covers, and the conditions on some of these have just been ultra fantastic. And the guys at TVC, they've actually been sending some of these into CGC. They've been getting their 9/8 left and right. Now this one right here, it's got there's a little tick on the front, and I kind of question it, but it's not. It's one that I've got at least several copies of. In fact, I've got a signed copy of this by the writer on this book. Let me show it to you. It is Airboy number 5 from Eclipse Comics, and this right here, Dave Stevens cover. You've got the Valkyrie right there, one of his greatest pieces, most recognizable pieces, I would say. And I've got a signed copy of this that I got signed back in 1993 by Chuck Dixon, the writer on this. And I remember taking it to the show and had this and Airboy number 1 that I had him sign. And I think he said he was so excited about somebody bringing him Airboy to get signed. I think, I'm not sure what else. Was he writing Batman? I'm not sure. But nobody was bringing him Airboy, apparently. And I dug out those, and I showed the signed copy of this here at some point. I know I've shown this on the channel, or it's going to be shown. I can't remember now because I filmed some of these ahead of time, the signed book shows, and it's a book that will go into CBCS at some point to get graded because the condition of that book, and I've had it, I bought it, it was not a newsstand, but it was a ordered comic back when I was in college, and I've had that copy. That was my original copy, and back in college I was keeping the books really nice, and it is still a really nice comic book. This is a really nice comic book too. I just question, there's this little tick right over here, slight. It's almost like it's part of the artwork, but I'm not sure. But it's still a really good copy and still going to be a candidate. The prices though right now, this is crazy. It's really weird across the YouTube comic book community. These Dave Stevens covers have been exploding, and 9.8s on this have recently gone for $500, $489, $380. Those are the last 3 sales that I pulled off of Go Collect, and that's over the last couple weeks now. 9.6 still do pretty good, 165, 165, and 110. So it's one of those where I would hope at the very least to be able to pull a 9.6 on this, because I don't think I'm going to pull that 9.8. But we'll see about that at some point. I'll have to really examine this book good to see if I'm going to put it in for that. All right, so I've already let the cat out of the bag. We've already talked about it's Dave Stevens, and that's what I'm picking up from TBC for the most part after that Captain America over the last couple weeks. And I picked up this first time I've ever owned it. It's Vanguard Illustrated number 2, and this book right here from January of 1984. It's hard to imagine a book from 1984 still in this great of condition. And again, it's a Dave Stevens cover. These things have just been exploding. 9.8s just recently sold for $399. But even so, a 9.6 is still in that same range as the Airboy, 110, 105, 110. Some of the last sales over the last few weeks on this as well. So this is a grading candidate, and I'll be honest with you, I bought this one to completely get graded and to sell. It is not one of my favorite Dave Stevens covers. There are certain covers that I grew up with, I should say, that I was fond of during the 80s, when I was collecting, that I was very familiar with, like the Airboy, for example. But this was not one of those. But the last one here is a really good one too, and it is a spectacular copy of Betty Page Comics. I believe this is number 1. They don't actually have the number on the front here, right here. And this is from Dark Horse Comics, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, from Dark Horse. And you got this beautiful Betty Page cover right there. And this is actually from 1996. It's not quite as old as that Vanguard book or even the Airboy. Well, the Airboy is about, I think, what was it, 90? Had to be 92, 91, or was it late 80s? I cannot remember, to be honest with you. I think I said during college, but I'm not sure at this point. But Betty Davis, 1996, Betty Davis. I literally said Betty Davis. Betty Page, comics #1, 1996, Dave Stevens. 9.8s just recently went for over $375. And you see these premiums that you're getting for these books right now. And I think it's going to have to be a Dave Stevens submission to CGC coming up pretty soon. These books may not need a lot of work in the shop, but I'm excited about seeing what I can get out of these. Now, this is another book that I probably would hopefully get that 9.0 and basically could flip. I don't necessarily want to hold on to this one either. The Airboy, I tell you the two that I really would rather keep in my collection. You say Dave Stevens to me, but outside of the Rocketeer, the ones that mean the most to me are the Johnny Quest issue with Jade and that Airboy cover with Valkyrie. Those are my two favorites. Maybe then the Seduction of the Innocent 3D cover with the Halloween cover. Those are the three that I would want to have on my PC. The rest of them are fantastic, but I would not be adverse to selling any of those once they're graded, of course. But that right there, guys, is what I have gotten back into off of WhatNot over the last couple weeks. I didn't fall off the cliff completely, but my efforts to stay away were not as successful as I wanted to. It had been several weeks and I had stayed off but I get there, I'm off work on Sundays and I get there at 5 o'clock and I'm going, I wonder what TVC has this week. And I go check it out. And all of a sudden there's a Dave Stevens cover or something else that has piqued my interest, or maybe even on my 2024 goals list. I don't know, but it draws me back in. So that's what I'm talking about. I thought I was out, but they pull me back in every time. We will try to be better disciplined than that and trying to stick to the books that you really want for your PC. We'll see going forward how I do on WhatNot going forward. I'm sure I will fall off the cliff again and we'll have another show. We'll have another show on this. But that is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this short show and enjoyed these books. If you've enjoyed these books or have any comments about the books themselves, definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. And again, if you're ever interested in anything on the channel, whether it's raw or graded, definitely reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or DM me on my Instagram account, or you can check out what I currently have for sale on eBay, on my eBay store, in my eBay store, or on my Shortbox page. I've got links down below so you can get to all of that. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. You guys have a great day. I'll see you for the next show. And remember, every comic has a story.